Well, sometimes the smallest decision can make the biggest impact. They do say knowing the difference between decisions that will and those that won't is the key to success. Takashi Takuchi about Ilia's bloomers. Honestly, truer words were never spoken. It's quotes like that give me hope for the future, and, after this profound realization about Ilia's bloomers, why not? Today, the 4th day of Ilia month, let's talk about character designs, but when it comes to character designs, where do you begin? Just one would be a short video, but talking about all of them would feel redundant and overly expository. As this is the 4th day, why not just keep it to 4? If you all want me to talk about the other character designs at a later date, I'd definitely be down. But, for now, let's just keep it to a core 4 that are the epitome of why this visual novel has peak character design. To start with the obvious choice for Fate's Stay, first up, Saber. Her overall design is simple, yet effective. Regardless of her being in battle garments or not, her outfit is accented with royal blue seen in her hair ribbon tying her hair back, and a braided bun that demonstrates her regal origins, as well as a sense of purity. But with Saber, it's not all prim and proper. Looking at her hair, we see that her ornate hair is in conflict with her ahegao? Ahoge? Stupid hair. And as this article I found in one Google search clearly shows, that means she's a bit dim-witted at times. Now, I don't have to tell anyone who's read the visual novel why that is, but for the anime-onlys in the audience, Saber's attitude towards things is typically to go in guns blazing and take care of things ASAP. Maybe not guns blazing, sword slashing? Moving on from that into her eyes and hair color. The blonde hair and blue eyes is a dead giveaway for her origins as a European, as well as making her stick out as an anomaly, as someone important. It's no secret that Type Moon has a thing for blonde main heroines. To quote Takuchi in the Fate Complete Material Book 2, "Blondes are hot." And while Arcoade's design in Tsuki was already wonderful, I think Saber's perfected that style. To get into why, we have to look at her outfits. First, the casual clothes. Her plain white dress shirt and long blue skirt show that she's someone who prefers form over fashion. And that's only proven more when we look down to her boots, which were clearly made for walking, and that's just what she'll do. Looking up from that, we see the design element that makes it all come together. The leggings. A design element that would have originally been Ilia's, oddly enough, which again contrasts with that ahegao, stupid hair of hers perfectly. The posture in her sprites can either be pragmatic in their stillness, nervous in her hand clasping, or flustered and angry, showing either open hostility with her hands out front, or passive aggressiveness with her hands behind her back. As she's a prideful girl, the sprite that's used when she's proven dead wrong about something clearly shows that she's trying to hide and feign ignorance. Finally, her most outwardly girly sprite with a smile and bent posture shows a weakness for taking care of people, as that's what drives her to a fault. If she can be Shiro's sword, then nothing else would make her happier. Speaking of swords, her combat garments. While a lot of her posturing carries over to nighttime, Saber's outfit doesn't, and when she's ready to fight, she dons a very ornate set of armor. The armor of someone who is clearly not just another soldier, but is also going to be out on the battlefield fighting. Her big gauntlets and unguarded arms show a need for swiftness over defense, but also accentuate that Saber is a girl. Strip away the armor pieces and what we're left with is a royal dress. Put all those back on and we can still see that function over style at play, however, as this outfit allows her to move around freely while still having a modicum of protection over her vital areas. Overall, Saber's design tells you all you need to know about her character before she even speaks a single line of dialogue, and is the standard of what a good character design should be. Looking at it, and then at her being the poster child for the visual novel, and it's no wonder why Fate's Stay Night did as well as it did. It's an aesthetically appealing design, and while the decals on her armor add little to it overall, as Takuchi said up top, the littlest things can make the biggest difference. And those decals definitely bring it home for me. Speaking of Takuchi, and by extension Nasu, however, what did they have to say about Saber's design? Quote, I guess the best analogy to illustrate what I mean is to say that if the archetypical characters you find in Bishoujo games are like a glass of juice, we wanted Saber to be more like pure spring water. Takeuchi just keeps providing inspirational quotes, doesn't he? Anyways, moving from royal blues into sharp reds, the next character on the docket is Ren. If Saber's hair demonstrated an air of maturity, Ren shows the lack thereof. Not to say it's wholly immature, that long flowing black hair demonstrates an air of superiority and that she comes from a prominent family, but the twin tails show that she still hasn't matured fully into her own. You can see this when she lashes out on others or gets easily flustered, as her twin tails are typically moving in every sprite where that happens. Of note, when it's 2 years later in the Heavensfield True End, we see that she's grown and has abandoned the twin tails for long, flowing hair. As well, the black hair color could be a signifier that she's a stereotypical magus, what we, as the audience, can expect people of that world to be like. Adding on to this is her red shirt adorned with a cross. From said cross, we can gather that she's someone who's devout in her methods, and is pure at her core, as well as it just being a cool detail. Surrounding that cross is a deep red shirt, which personifies her typical tsundere personality. It's fiery and abrasive, almost unapproachable, but at the center of it is again purity that you have to dig to find. Moving down to her skirt, unlike Saber's, it's short, and combined with her thigh highs, shows off a bit of skin. It reveals just enough to drive any schoolboy or average anime viewer wild, wondering what more could be in store. Which is a good thing. Ren's character, and by extension the tsundere archetype, is essentially what more could be in store. It makes the audience actively want to find out more about her. She's revealing just a little bit, and it's the same with her personality. If you want to find out what's there, you'll have to work to unearth the layers of red to reach that purity in the middle. Ren clearly prefers fashion over form, at least in comparison to Saber, while still keeping an outfit that can let her do what she has to. Very open mobility. Her posturing as well shows us a refined girl who is knowledgeable, but still makes mistakes. Someone who's outwardly confident, but said confidence is little more than a front for real underlying issues. To talk briefly about the coat and school uniform look, because it's legitimately one of my favorites in the visual novel, in the simplest way I can put it, the coat on top of the school uniform shows that while she wants to keep her day-to-day close to her, what she really is, what she really wants to be, is a full-fledged magus. Another brilliant design. Say, what did Takeuchi and Nasu have to say on it? I think Ren is a character who is all about potential. Maybe that's why I'm only truly appreciating her now. And another wonderful quote. Thank you, Mr. Takeuchi. Don't worry, Nasu gets a quote next. This isn't just a one-sided power hour. Though I do think Takeuchi had some very, very eye-opening quotes in this interview. Though that could be because he's the artist and this is the character material book. Now, it wouldn't be fair to the males in the cast to only talk about the females, so let's turn our attention to the best man in Stay Night. Controversial take? We're talking about Gilgamesh. See, this one's interesting as his design differs depending on the route. While I struggled to think of why this was for the longest time, I think I finally reached a somewhat satisfying answer. See, Gilgamesh was meant to be this unapproachable figure in the Fate route, someone above all others, essentially the final boss. His golden armor with its immaculate decals and overall extravagance shows pretty clearly what he thinks of himself, a golden king. This is the design you see first reading the visual novel. If it's the Fate route, it's the only one you see. And that's because we're supposed to see Gil as this insurmountable figure. It's only once you get to UBW and beyond that, like Shiro, he starts to be more and more rounded as a character. Such things were hinted at in the Fate route around the time he died to Saber, but in these latter routes we get a clearer example of what it is he's trying and willing to do. Looking at his overall stance, it exudes confidence as well as pragmatism. He'll get what he feels needs to be done when he feels like it, be that wiping out all the extras or defeating a fake. But that confidence comes at a cost. Looking at his posture in UBW, you can tell that he's never really putting his heart into things. He's just coasting by, making actions only when he deems necessary. After all, what is a king without his ego? Not much more to say beyond that. His choice in clothes exudes cool and pride. Apparently, Takeuchi consulted fashion magazines to really solidify Gil's casual clothes, and that ties in nicely with his blonde hair signifying that he's unique. Man will do what he sees fit, and that's that. About Gilgamesh, in the character materials book, Nasu says, even though he's not one to be tied down by notions of morality and decency, he does have a sort of system that guides him through his actions and conduct. While I can talk on and on about character designs all day, this is starting to get a little much to be able to edit in one day, so let's conclude with my personal favorite design in the visual novel, and honestly, probably just anything. That design being, of course, the one, the only, Miss Ilia Seville von Einsburn. Let's start with the design you first encounter in the game, Ilia with the coat. Already, we can see little aspects of her personality slip through. The coat itself is massive and goes down to her ankles. As well, she's wearing a cap and scarf with boots to match. Already, we can tell that this is a character that comes from a very cold environment and actively hates the cold. The coat looks to be expensive in its make, and it's adorned with many buttons, and as well has many parts sticking out, signifying that she likely comes from a very well-off family. Combined with the hat, it gives off that mature-looking vibe. For instance, this very combo would be used again with Rhines in the Case File series. And in both here and there, it turns a lolly-looking character into one with some semblance of maturity. However, going back down to the ankles, we see a little bit of that playfulness slip through. Right away, it hints at a sort of immaturity, like she's just playing an act. It works to make the audience recognize that there's probably more to her than that murderous intent we see so strongly at the start. This outfit, much like Ilia herself, is a front to hide what's really underneath. We can see aspects of her real personality shine through, and with some sprites that's only expanded upon more so, but overall, the reader, or Shiro, aren't going to get to know the real Ilia until what's underneath is revealed. And just what that is this, her casual wear. Looking at this one already shows far more about her than the other design did. Fitting, as this design can only be seen once Shiro enters either the Einsburn castle or invites Ilia to his own home. Anyways, what does this semi-casual attire show us about Ilia? Starting from the top, we now get a full view of her hair, which is laid down in contrast to the rest of the heroines, showing already that she might be more mature than one would expect at first glance. Her hair is well kept as well, with a small part over her right eye. I like to think this works as a nice visual cue to hint that there's more to her than you'd expect. It's certainly different than any other heroine in the visual novel at least. Her hair color being either a platinum blonde or silver depending on your preference. As a side note, no, Mr. Ufotable, it's not white. Did you even read the visual novel? Combines with her red eyes to show us something that sets Ilia apart from everyone else. Something about her isn't exactly natural. The red eyes contrast with her playful demeanor, and though it's easy to get swept up in said demeanor, she's always one glance away from turning hostile. Those red eyes, while one being the objective best eye color, work like Ren's red shirt to give off an almost unapproachable feel, fitting when combined with the rest of her outfit, which consists of a rather dapper dress shirt with gold trimmings, again showing her well-established origins and that she's clearly someone of high importance, as well as a necktie? Scarf? I'm sticking with tie. That's nice in showing the authority she clearly wields over the rest of the cast in spite of her stature and childish skirt. That frilly skirt makes a nice contrast between her formal top. It's the two sides of her that are prevalent so much in the visual novel, and specifically only the third Heavensfield movie, those being the more childlike side and the more mature, the Emoto and the One-san, if you will. I think the lack of leggings is a sad one aesthetic-wise, but I do tend to agree with Nasu and Takeuchi that those work better on Saber, and that Ilia without them has her personality much more clearly conveyed. Like two sides of a coin, you can get either with Ilia depending on the scene, and her sprites only convey that more, with a mix of playful, thoughtful, and prideful expressions and poses. Takeuchi said in the interview for the second character materials book that he wanted to convey motion with Ilia's sprites, and I certainly get where he was coming from. That little aspect goes a long way towards making her more approachable in spite of her initial hostile appearance. Taking such body language into account, the audience can't help but find themselves sympathizing with Shiro wanting to see her again. It's just such a good design, and works in tandem with the sprite work to illustrate her personality. As well, the colors of purple, red, and silver make her instantly identifiable in a crowd of characters. It's simplistic, but not without its depth. Again, with Ilya, it's the little details that make the design. A design that took quite a few tries to get to across prototype and the development period of Stay Night, but a design process that was well worth it. One last time before we go, well, sometimes the smallest decision can make the biggest impact. They do say knowing the difference between the decisions that will and those that won't is the key to success. Once again, Takashi Takuchi, about Ilya's Bloomers. The writing... oh shit. The writing process for this one turned out to be quite lengthy, but I like to think it was well worth the effort. What do you guys think? Share your thoughts in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe, shilling nonsense out of the way. After I edit this, I'm going to bed. I've had a headache all day. So, peace.